Mr Chair, it's interesting. I just quickly referenced, we heard a little bit about the spatial plan earlier, and I hope that the member who was referencing it will recall that the original document that went to the Select Committee suggested that the spatial plan should have a single purpose, which was growth and development, which said something about the perception and the worldview and the preference of the people who drafted it. Growth and development standing alone in that key position, the spatial plan, the 30-year long-term strategy, to suggest that nothing but growth and development should be the driving imperative of the entire enterprise would be catastrophic for Auckland and the region. We were reassured, never mind, in other bits and pieces of legislation there are references to the social issues, the cultural and indeed the environmental outcomes of local government, and we can rely on those. But I'm pleased to say that the Green and Labor lobbying, shall we say, did finally encourage the drafters to insert specific references that in future the spatial plan that is the overall overarching strategy for this new structure will need to consider social, environmental, cultural, as well as economic and other issues. And that was such a blinding oversight of the original drafters is almost to defy belief. I mentioned earlier that the loss of democracy that this bill entails, we are undoubtedly losing democracy in the larger sense. We are specifically losing our rights to propose a change to boundaries any time between now and the next general election, the local body election 2013. The people of Rodney, North Rodney in particular, are seriously annoyed by that, to the extent they're considering trying to bring a member's bill, a local bill, to this House in order to once again regain their right, enjoyed by every other New Zealander, to propose a reorganisation of the boundaries. Aucklanders are not going to be able to, after 2013, to propose change to the electoral system, a right enjoyed by every other New Zealander. So we are having diminished rights, we are having diminished opportunities to participate as citizens in a democratic society, and perhaps the cruelest cut of all is that we're getting less and we're going to be paying more, because we are going to be paying a great deal more. 18 months, 2 years ago perhaps, when this grand new vision of a new city, a new governance structure for Auckland was pronounced, it was all about reducing rates, it was about efficiency, it was about a cut in cost, it was about stopping the inexorable rise of rates on people in that area. And we haven't heard so much of that language from the Minister, and I apologise if we are keeping him awake. We've heard very little about that recently. The idea that actually this exercise is going to save anybody money seems to have dropped off the agenda, and there's a very clear and obvious reason for that it will not. There will not be savings for Auckland in the short, and very unlikely there'll be savings in the long term. There's nothing in the structure that will suggest we will actually save money. It's extraordinary that, by the Minister's own admission, there has not been a comprehensive cost-benefit analysis done of this entire project. The cost overall is a suck it and see, we'll tell you at the end, except nobody will ever know because the figures are not being kept. We've heard a bit in the last few days about the costs of the Transition Authority, and we're reassured, yes, they'll come in on time and under budget. They must come in on time because the statutory requirement is this new shaky structure must be in place on November 1st. Under budget, I doubt that very much. The costs that are being imposed, the invisible but very real financial costs, are already being picked up by councils, and they will most certainly go through to the pockets of the ratepayers in the Greater Auckland area. There are hundreds of millions of dollars of cost of this exercise. No matter what alchemy, what smoke and mirrors anyone may endeavour to attach to the whole process, the hard dollars will have to be spent. There is already an obvious human cost. The people working within the 8 local authorities, the 7 TLAs and the regional authority, have been walking on eggshells for some months, wondering who's going to get their job, who's going to lose it. We know that there's an enormous amount of work that is being done, that needs to be done. More work will be done from November 1st. And the question occurs, who will actually be there to do that work? We know already that some of the best and brightest employees of the councils have simply looked at the situation and they've turned their backs on it and they've walked away.
Call Ross Robertson.